After playing Nodiatis for 8 hours, I have reached a strange conclusion. I hate the early game gameplay experience. I hate the way your towns are laid out. I hate your shop interface. I hate the incomplete tutorial. I hate the voiceover. I hate the boss balancing. I hate the excessive grinding. I hate how you've not centered the graphics of the enemies in the fights. I hate how the text floods the screen and flows upwards. I hate how you can't resize the window. I hate how the level up sounds stack and increase in volume. There's a lot I hate about this game, but what I hate the most, by far, is that under the surface, this is a really, really good game, with a lot of heart and soul and some super deep systems, and it's being held back by its awful surface level choices. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I'm Josh Hayes, and this is Worst MMO Ever, a show where I play the worst MMOs so you don't have to. Drop a like on the video or sub to the channel for more MMO stuff. Ring the bell for all the future notifications. As usual, a massive thank you to all the supporters on Patreon and Twitch who keep the channel alive. More on how you can support at the end. For now, let's begin. Today we are playing Khan Academy. Or is it Khan Absolute Power? Steam lists it as two different names. No, it's Khan Online. Wait, no, now it's Khan Rebirth. Well, whatever name it wants to have, it doesn't work. It also has the lowest effort launcher I've ever seen, and it doesn't work. Great, okay, not a problem, on to the backup game. Today we are playing Florenzia. It's on Steam, it's free, and it also doesn't launch. Awesome, okay, I'll fix that later. On to the third choice. Today we are playing Nodiatis, which takes a whopping 10 seconds to download. Now, I've never heard of this game, and I have no idea what to expect, but it launches, so we're already doing well. The splash screen is very 80s low-budget fantasy and seems to have this tooltip text that appears randomly as I move my cursor around. Seems the king's daughter has been kidnapped by the beast tribes and is being kept alive as a slave as a symbol of beast's dominion over man, and we need to go and do something about this. So is there full screen? No, not really. It does go full screen, but the playing window doesn't actually change. I'll fix this in editing somehow. Create a character. We choose a face portrait and a background. You have 4 faces available at a time and a re-roll button. Why? Just show me all the faces in a big list or something, but I do quite like the artwork. I'm a sucker for cheesy 80s or 90s fantasy, and this feels very pulp adventure. Now to choose a class. There are 26 classes, and despite being described as wildly different, they've all just got different variations on starting stats. You can be a knight, a ranger, a rogue, a merchant, a sailor, a soldier, a beastmaster, a nobleman, or an alcoholic. Ah yes, the classic fantasy class, alcoholic. Or you can be an angel. I think there's a bit of a difference in power level there. If you were forming an adventure party and your choice was between taking the angel or the alcoholic, I think I know which one I would pick. The alcoholic, obviously. You get a dragon breath attack, so let's do this. And now a choice that will really highlight the absurd levels of detail this game goes into. You can customize your font color with 3 different layers. A base layer, a background drop shadow layer, and a foreground emboss effect layer. And you can make each layer a different color. Why on earth would you give the player this decision? Game starts and there is a voiceover, so let's sit back and enjoy it together.
You have been born in Castile, humankind's lost stronghold. Beyond the relative safety of Castile lay the horrors of reality. A brutal and unforgiving land, once dominated by man, now reclaimed by darkness. Click your face to enter the town. Travelling without first acquiring a weapon would be ill-advised.
So the world map is a grid, and we're on a town tile, so we click to enter, and then there's a klaxon alarm sound. That's actually signalling a server restart is going to happen soon. The town doesn't just have ambient klaxons. We're told to click the shop door, and right, the overworld is a grid, but the towns are single screens navigated with clickable areas. Okay, the shop is also part of the tutorial, and also voiced.
You will notice a small selection of weapons on the left. Different towns have different items. Move your mouse cursor over them to view their statistics. The weapons that you don't have the skills to use yet will have dark lines running through their icon image.
I buy one of the weapons it tells me to and then go to equip it. Our inventory looks as classic fantasy RPG as you could possibly go. Head, both arms, both legs, body, hands. We'll look at this later. For now, I have a stick with a spiked hook on the end. We are sent to the church to talk with the seer. This is the town's main quest giver. In fact, the town's only quest giver. All quests come from the seer. He's this barely clothed, malnourished man with the most basic of animations. He turns his head when you cursor over him. We ask for a collection quest and get told go and get 5 5 rat's teeth from the docks. Leaving town by clicking the big exit button puts us back on the overworld. Now, you can only move one tile at a time, up, down, left or right. It's very multi-user dungeon, original MMO style. And you can see the level range of the new tile you're moving to by hovering over it. So obviously the tile right next to the starting town is level 87, literally end game. When you move onto a tile, combat starts. Combat is, well, have you ever played Eye of the Beholder? Or Wizardry, back on the Amiga? Combat is different. It's first person. You can see the enemy and you turn on auto attack by pressing A or clicking this button, and you just start attacking and you see your weapon be swiped across the screen and then you wait. The enemy attacks you back and you watch your health bars. Our alcoholic class special is a Dragon Breath, which makes a PNG of a dragon appear and do about 3 damage. In this case I actually miss, and then there is a long cooldown time. Now I hope you really like this combat system, because this is most of the early game. About 6 of my 8 hours were spent in this combat screen. When you kill an enemy, you can loot them. Loot is shown to the top left. You can drag to your inventory over to the right, and then if you wait, a treasure chest may fade in. Click it for some gold. Once a fight is done, you're back in the overworld. You can click the tile you're on to enter it again and fight again, or move to another tile, but when you move, chances are you're going to trigger another fight. Now, fights aren't mindless. There is a complex system of spells and debuffs you need to use, but the game doesn't explain this to you early on, and this is my biggest problem with early game. I've said before, your early game is vital. It is where you're going to lose 95% of your player base. You cannot hold the good stuff in your game until later, because they're not going to stick around until later. This whole section is an absolute slog, and I will touch on the actually quite good combat system later, but believe me when I say it starts really slowly. I level up and get to choose one of 3 stats. I'll go with agility. Now, the level up system is stupidly deep, and we'll be getting to that too. Basically, Nodiatis is a game full of complex, well-designed systems that just doesn't bother helping you understand how any of them work through actual emergent gameplay. Now, while fighting, you'll see I've been spawning these normal escape potions and dragging them onto my empty hotkeys from the bottom of the screen. This is one of the mechanics we will come back to later. The game gives you free random escape potions every few seconds, and drinking them, just clicking on it, makes you flee, but it also sends you back a square, so not really that useful when you're going to be attacked when you move anyway. So let's look at the mess that is the skill system in this game. You have 14 player attributes shown up here in 2 columns, with the sum total of each column shown to the bottom, from strength and dexterity to your durability, physical resilience and mental resilience. And then you've got 14 different schools of skills shown on the left column down here. Clicking on a school shows you all the specifics in that school. For example, right now we're on stats, and you have melee, magic, defense, recovery, but also things like temperance, superior cleansing, self-preservation and defiance. If we go to the weaponry school list, we'll see we have slashing and piercing, but also things like hemorrhage, dual wield, slice and dice, puncture, vengeance, and quadra kill. Death magic tracks our diabolism, staves, raise, inferno, hasten demise, or grave bound. These aren't spell names, by the way, they're individual names of aspects that govern each of our general use of death magic. For example, putting points into improved rupture states when the target's health percent is below 0.2 multiplied by your amount of points in this skill, then your ruptures have a 100% chance of occurring. At maximum, you will always rupture against targets with 20% or less health requires a staff. You've also got social skills like bartering or language, which allows you to find more gold in chests when you're in a clan, or the recognition skill, which, as the tooltip literally says, determines how awesome other people think you are. And how do we level all these skills? Well, just bear with me because this gets complicated, because you level almost all of them differently. Every school is leveled in a slightly different way. Let's start with stats, the top one. You gain experience in stats by fighting enemies close to your own level, but you must right-click on a specific stat and select active training. This means all combat experience will go into this stat. Stat skills can only be actively trained. So if you make magic active, then you go and fight. No matter what weapon you use or how you win, you'll gain magic experience if you do win. Your character's total level is shown at the top. It is the total level of the top 4 stat skills, that's melee, magic, defense and recovery, added together, averaged and rounded down. Then you've got the learning school. Learning skills you cannot actively train. You can only passively train, meaning you right-click on something and choose passive training. Now you will slowly gain experience in this skill even when offline. There is even a passive advancement skill within this school which increases the rate of your passive training. So passively training your passive training skill so you can passively train things faster is a possibility. Next we have weaponry, archery and protection, which are all combat skills, and to level these you must do the following. Go into the school and select an active skill within each school. Let's say we select critical strike as the active weaponry skill. Then go and do some combat and hope your enemy drops a combat trophy item. Then head to the church in town, look for the weaponry shrine, it's the crossed swords, and click and drag the combat trophy from your inventory onto the weaponry shrine. And you will gain weaponry experience equal to the value of the combat trophy in your currently active weaponry skill. To train archery or protection skills, you drag the combat trophy onto the archery or protection altars instead. So if you need to level your parry skill, you don't parry in a fight, you select parry as the active skill in the protection school, then go and do some combat, get some combat trophies, then drag the combat trophies onto the protection shrine to gain experience in parrying. Life magic, death magic and psych magic are the same. Select an active skill from within the list, but then you must use the spirit trophies, which are also dropped by enemies on the correct spirit altar inside the church. The beast mastery skill can be leveled with combat or spirit trophies on its shrine. Crafting, artistry and resourcefulness are leveled by doing the same thing. I didn't get a chance to do much because my 8 hours were spent grinding, but then you've got adventuring. You level the adventuring skill by visiting new towns, so make sure you have which aspect of adventuring you want to gain the experience set as active before you enter a new town. Adventuring levels things such as item stacking, allowing you to stack more than 10 of the same item in each individual inventory space, or pack mule, which increases the amount of inventory slots you've got. Your inventory is also limited by weight, but the weight system uses rocks and sand as units of measurement because it just has to be fantasy and can't use actual weights. Then finally you've got the social school of skills, which involve things like increasing your bank storage, or vigilance, which lets you realise when other players are spectating you. To level social skills, select one as active and then trade gold with another player. You gain social experience every time you trade with a player, which is difficult because gold trades are both taxed and only available to paying members. But along with this, you can select one non-stat, non-learning skill to be passively trained while you're logged off, and you can change this at will. So you can very, very slowly, over a few months, level everything, and each skill goes to a maximum at the start of 100, but it's okay because if you do somehow manage to max out, talk to the seer in the church and select pilgrimage, which is a prestige system, resetting you to level 1, but also increasing the maximum level of a maxed out skill by 1. But while you're on a pilgrimage leveling back up, you will not gain gold or loot for killing monsters. Yeah, see? Told you it was deep. But ultimately, do you know what all of this means? It means you need to spend a metric ton of time gathering combat or spirit trophies, so the majority of your gameplay is just grinding enemies. Honestly, Nodiatis feels like an adult dark fantasy adventure quest. The screen-to-screen movement, the extensive amount of stats and items, the simply laid out towns and the accepting of quests, except Adventure Quest was more light-hearted and fun. And it had a lot of early game quest lines to distract you. There was always someone different to talk to or something different to do. Nodiatis' early game is literally talk to the only dude that gives quests and then go and kill rats or crabs for like 2 hours. But here's a nice touch. A tiny red spider crawls down the side of the game client and I click it out of habit and it goes squish and the screen flashes red. What a random thing to add. I throw the combat trophies I'm getting into suiting so I can wear better armour and go and buy some basic armour sets. I also accept some more fetch quests from the seer. There are 3 types of main quest. Collection, which is kill enemies to find items. Kill, which is kill enemies. And boss, which is kill one hard enemy. So all quests revolve around killing things. I mean, quest could literally be anything and you have the exact game foundation and structure to have an epic fantasy and a story with characters, but no. Everything is about killing. You cannot advance to the next area until you kill the boss quest of the last area, because the game straight up just doesn't let you move onto a higher level overworld tile. So even if I did want to go and explore to the west, I can't until I've killed the Eastern Docks boss. I am quickly discovering the game has a lot of overlapping text on the screen at all times, and it makes it kind of hard to read because it fades away before you get a chance. Combat is irritating from a graphical perspective because, I mean, look, the enemy model is at the bottom behind my hotbar. I can't even see what I'm fighting front and centre. I've got a lovely view of the open sky and the empty ocean, but I can't see the enemy. But let's look at combat a bit deeper. You've got life magic, death magic, and psych magic. Now, magic comes from casting gems sold in the shops. Buy a gem, then move it from your gem bag to your active gem slots. Gems come in different colours and ranks, and in combat, you will draw one gem at random from your gem slots. It will appear in the hot button to the bottom, and then you drag it onto the hotbar slightly above it, and you can click it to use it. If a gem slot in your bag is empty, you will create escape potions instead of gems, so leaving one slot empty is a good idea if you want to be able to escape fights. This means before battle, you're effectively setting up a bank of spells you will randomly have access to, and each gem can be used an unlimited number of times. Casting a gem doesn't mean you've used it up, it just means you need to wait for it to be drawn again. You only need one gem in one slot. You just need to wait for it to appear in combat. Setting up your gem collection is actually quite tactical, but you'll never discover this because the game doesn't tell you until you randomly buy a gem and you've been fighting enemies for like 2 hours before that and probably quit forever. You can also only have a certain number of each coloured gem equipped at any time, and you increase this number by levelling your magic skill by giving spirit trophies to the correct altar while the skill you want is active. So after getting a bit bored of killing rats, I hand in my quest and try to travel to the next city and get told no, you must do all 5 docks quests, 2 collections, 2 killing and 1 boss. The seer has actually given me collection and killing quests which require me to go west, but I can't go west. I can't go there until I've killed the dock boss first, so I go and do that. And it turns out the boss also uses runes and stunlocks me and completely rips me apart. Wow. Can I buy some potions or something? So I go and check, and the shop UI is awful. Items you can't buy have a diagonal line effect across them, and while there are sets of items, they're not all on the same line or column or bunched together in any reasonable way. It's just a snaking list of gems, weapons, armour and stuff. This needs to be redone to be much more player friendly. Honestly, looking at this shop makes me unhappy. The background graphic is nice, the layout of the shop is not. I tried the fisherman boss again after grinding and no, I just die more. Now remember, every time I die, I get taken back to town and I have to travel to the boss every single time, which means going through 5 tiles, which means going through 5 different fights. I think I actually need a training montage to do this, so while I do that, let's read some reviews of this game. If you like RPG grindy games, you will love this. Don't think you can play this without paying. A lot. The free experience is one of the worst around. Absolutely hateful. It's a relaxing game with a hint of nostalgia. The community is one of the best I've seen. Probably because it's small but growing. There are players who have been here for years, but I'm enjoying the grind and the variety. It's pretty much kill this and train for the next level, but you do have to wait for rested time, otherwise experience gains are inefficient. No harm in trying, and don't be afraid to ask for help. Oddly enjoyable. Most likely not everyone's cup of tea, but this game is enjoyable if you like an old-style RPG. This game is much better than it looks. First, you need to check out the wiki of this game before you start playing it. 14,970 hours played. Finally, after about 2 hours, I hit General Level 2. I need a better weapon. That requires 2 piercing, and that needs more combat trophies. So that means more grinding. After what feels like an age, I try the boss again, and I finally win. Just. He drops some bamboo sleeve armour, which needs 2 suiting, which is a protection skill I don't have. So I need to grind fights to get combat trophies to use on the protection altar while suiting is set as active so I can equip the armour so I can grind to get more trophies to get more skills. I have finally beaten the boss, but I'm still not allowed on Traveller's Way, because you need to talk to the seer and specifically choose Tell Me About Zones, and then he will allow you to go. And your quests, by the way, the ones you're on, you just need to hover your cursor over the accomplishments icon down the bottom right. The tooltip shows them. That's your quest list. On my way to Traveller's Way, I check out the world map, and it's pretty big. It's taken me 2 hours to beat the first boss and lead the starting city to the next city along. It's going to take months to explore all of this. I mean, if that's what you're into, cool, but I really can't see this holding even a more hardcore old school player. This is for fanatics of grindy games. I try the next boss, the Ogre, and he just obliterates me like it's not even close. Okay, this is insane. Games don't need to be this grindy. Games aren't jobs with week-long initiations or hazing rituals. You don't need to put the new player through 10 hours of grueling crap before you finally say, well done, here's the fun part. I know this is clearly someone's passion project, and I'm going to get some hardcore fans say, but that's the point. You need to go through the crap. You need to earn this. Playing this game is a privilege, not a right. But the opening is dire from a game design perspective. And it's annoying me because honestly, the actual systems underneath aren't that bad. There's nothing wrong with screen-to-screen movement. You need to focus on interfaces and your UIs to a minute degree because they're all you have, and diagonal lines in a messy shop just isn't cutting it, but there's nothing wrong with it as a system. There's nothing wrong with first-person tick-based combat, but not focusing the enemy in the center of the screen is graphically amateur. Having the health bars and enemy spells or effects be so awkward to follow isn't good early game design. Making the player grind rats and crabs for 2 hours to beat a boss only to have more grind isn't going to keep players. I don't like the idea of an elite group of players sitting around thinking, aren't we so elite, we managed to grind for months and beat this game, isn't it great there are only a few of us, because actually this is a fun experience that a lot of MMORPG players are looking for, but you are keeping it grindy as a gatekeeping mechanic. The idea of using combat trophies to level up, yeah, it's complex and it's convoluted, but it can work. It could be a little extra bonus system on top of traditional leveling. Maybe cut back on the excessive amount of skills within each school. Have a few skills, but have them all be exceptionally useful. Have them be quest rewards later in the game so you slowly ease the player into this system. It's not overwhelming. Have more than one quest giver. Have a story. Have something to read. If you're using screen-to-screen movement, then clearly you're expecting players who want to read, who want to get immersed or at least watch a game. Why aren't you using this to your advantage? The weakest part of your game is the early game combat because it's dull and repetitive, and it's the only thing you want a new player to focus on for multiple hours? Why? There's no point having a huge fantasy world when no one is going to make it out of the starting town due to frustration or boredom with your game mechanics. I actually really like the idea of Nodiatis. I can see the actual quality under the surface is there, but the surface needs one hell of a polish. This game is the opposite of New World. New World gives an amazing first impression and looks incredible, but then you realise it's quite empty, whereas Nodiatis gives a terrible first impression and looks awful, but actually has a lot of things which could be very fun if presented well or balanced. Like, it's not hard to add multiple quest lines or NPCs or events to a 2D screen game. Interesting characters, unique enemy drops, little mini quest. Adventure Quest did it with Battle On, you can do it here. The reason I'm getting so upset with this is because when I'm playing this game, all I'm feeling is wasted potential. This framework could be so good if you moved it away from a grand epic scale world and focused on the small personal experience of the player. If you have incredible complex systems, be proud to show them and let the player experience them within a few minutes of playing and then set them off on an adventure. Don't say, welcome to your second job. I grind for ages to gather the gold to buy a two-handed spear, and then I discover I need level 2 in the two-handed skill, so I grind more to get the trophies to level two-handed so I can grind more to kill the boss. Here's a problem, there are no tooltips when you hover your cursor over your gems while in combat. However, it does have a tooltip while in the gem bag, so if you forget what your gems do, which I have, you're just randomly throwing them at the enemy, hoping for the best. You've got tooltips for everything else, they'd actually be quite useful here. My spear has big damage but poor accuracy, and I'm still nowhere near close to being able to kill the boss. I even go back to the docks to grind the first boss, but no, you can only get one boss drop once. I also discovered when I one-hit killed crabs for fast trophies, you cannot open more than one coin chest every 15 seconds, specifically to prevent one-hit enemy farming. So the game wants you to grind, but not like that. You must grind the way it feels is best. All the quests the seer has given me need me to be past the ogre to the west, but my only option now is to grind foxes and snakes on the trail for literal hours, but oh hey look, there's fishing. Click the fishing pole when you're by the water, then wait for the rod to bend and click. But it bends rapidly, and I miss a lot. And when you miss, you only get one attempt at fishing per tile. And to reset your attempt, you must click on the tile you're on, which starts a battle, so you must fight something, and then try and fish again. So if you mistime your fishing cast, you have to fight, and then fish more. And eventually, I finally get it. I get a fish. I mean, I don't know what I was expecting. Just didn't think the fishing skill would require intermittent combat. Eventually, I do the only thing I can think of to get past this ogre boss. I ask the community for help, and amazingly, someone replies. Kitty messages and says they will pop over and get me some items and a weapon and help me out. Now, when multiple players are joined in a party, you all appear as icons on the overworld map and in the first-person fight screen. This is how bosses can happen. Kitty tells me I should use the grass sword the first boss dropped. I may have sold that for the spear, which apparently was a major mistake because now I've really hobbled my early game run. Good to know you're able to do that. Kitty travels over and offers to trade me some combat trophies so I can level up quickly, but I'm a free player, so they have to trade me a game time card, and this gives me 4 weeks of in-game normal membership or 10 days of premium. And remember, they had to pay for this, so I redeem normal and trade and get showered in combat trophies, so I'll be able to set a skill to active and boost it to like level 10. Oh, the joys of being a YouTuber. So I do that, and I discover something that Kitty warns me about. The level up sound stacks. If you gain multiple levels in one go, that little ding sound gets layered over itself and gets exponentially louder. Headphone warning, gaining a lot of levels in one go sounds like this. So Kitty escorts me to the ogre boss, kills them in one hit because Kitty is super OP for this level range, and then walks me all the way to the next town, which looks literally exactly the same as the first town. Same 3 screens, same shop, same layout, same door position in the market, same churchyard, same pedestals, even the same seer in the same church. Are towns in this game just copy-pasted versions of each other? Is the only difference the stock of the shops and the level ranges of the items? Because if that's the case, you need to lean even more heavily into your story and plot and characterization and little mini-quests, which so far you're not doing a very good job of. But while in town, the princess talks to me again.
You have reached Stronhad. I must admit, I did not expect you to. Most men are far too frightened to venture along Traveller's Way, a road I used to walk as a child, not even to my father's displeasure. But that was long ago. Stronhad was always a centre of commerce. With so many markets, they spilled out of the town onto the road surrounding. Perhaps one day they again shall. I will commune with you again when you reach Venelia.
Apparently she's waiting for me in the next village, which is to the south, which means more grinding levels, more upgrading items, more quests, more bosses, and more slowly moving tile by tile across the overland. And honestly, I've been at this 8 hours already, and I'm only at the second village because I got carried through the second boss. But on the journey, Kitty told me a few interesting design choices, like how there's an epic monster controlled by the game's designer that spawns daily, and you can use time cards to find the location and fight them in a huge team for epic loot. Or how you can form guilds and clans, and there are multiple chat channels, and honestly, this whole thing sounds like a lot of very good systems arranged in a very bad way. Nodiatis is a screen-to-screen scrolling adventure game with first-person combat, and honestly, the general game aesthetic is not the problem here. It's the specifics on each screen. I don't mind the movement or the combat style, or a somewhat slower pace of progression as long as you're not taking the mick. I hate the focus on this style's weakness. You've got a classic fantasy adventure here. I'm getting vibes of the old City of Thieves choose-your-own-adventure novels, of clandestine conversations in treacherous taverns, of barroom brawls with the King's Royal Guards. This is the framework for a story-driven, adventure-focused, multi-mini-quest exploration fantasy. And you've got me killing rats for 2 hours, then grinding foxes for the next 5. The game isn't badly made, it's just not fun when you start, which is a shame because if you rebalance this to progress faster and you explained your systems smoother, you'd probably see and keep a lot more players. If you're after a really grindy, classic fantasy-inspired game focusing on the late 80s, early 90s adventure tropes, give this a go. But it's a shame I had to say really grindy in that endorsement. If I could change that to just somewhat grindy, I'd be really happy. Because even though my time with this game was slow and tedious, it was enjoyable because I could see the potential. To unlock the rating of this review, you first need to select the YouTube school, then gaming, then make sure Josh Strife Hayes is the active channel. Then for every video you watch, you'll get 1 like. You now need to spend 5 likes on the channel at the altar of subs, and after about 5 hours, you'll increase your review ownership score by 1, and you need 4 review ownership to unlock this review. Out of 10. Thank you for watching. Another massive thank you to the supporters on Patreon and Twitch who keep the channel alive. You can support from only £1 a month. Check the video description for links to the Patreon, Twitch, Twitter, Discord and the new second channel Josh Strife Plays, where I replay classic games voted on by you and judge them by modern standards. Thank you very much for your time, and as always, have a great day.